Welcome to the Woman Who Makes Things Happen show. My name is Agnes van Rijn, and I am a life and business success mentor to female entrepreneurs and small business owners who want to be successful, whatever that means to them, but on their own terms. At the Woman Who Makes Things Happen show today, it is my privilege to be interviewing Tricia Trotman-Maraj. She's an ambitious geographic curriculum specialist, a motivational speaker, and a public sector management graduate with strong communication, presentation, analytical, and problem-solving skills. The challenges she had to face in her life are too numerous for me to start listing them here. I'd rather have her talk about it. She knows what adversity is and how to go after her dreams. She has strong leadership skills and specializes in motivating troubled youth toward academic success and holistic development through hard and focused work. Her ultimate goal is to work as a full-time motivational speaker. Welcome to the Woman Makes Things Happen show, Tricia. How are you?
Thank you very much, Agnes. I am great. Absolutely great today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You and I met very recently at a conference, and no, it wasn't a conference; it was a workshop. Yes. We had a brief conversation, and I could immediately feel and sense that I needed to have you as a guest on the Woman Makes Things Happen show. So tell us more about you.
Well, I am Tricia Trotman-Maraj, motivational speaker and author. I am also a teacher. I am from Trinidad and Tobago. It's in the Caribbean. And I moved to the UK roughly 9 months ago. So I am here with my family and exploring all of the opportunities that there are in London and enjoying them.
So that's something that you and I have in common, because I arrived in London something like 9 months ago also. So maybe a little bit more meanwhile, must be 10 by now. And yes, definitely I'm enjoying London. It's really great. So, but tell us more about your life before arriving in London, and then, you know, what are the type of challenges that you've been facing and how have you been overcoming them and etc.
My challenge started the day I was born.
Oh,
that's a long way back. And all of my life, I have been faced with challenges, and I have been able to overcome every single one. And when I say challenges, I came from a very poor family. I did not know that I was actually poor until I grew up. We lived in a small wooden house with no electricity, no indoor plumbing. So the bathroom, everything was outside under coconut trees or cedar trees, you know, snakes, anything dropping in on you. Right. But it was an adventure. When I think back of those days, I do get that nostalgic feeling. Of course, I know they will never come back, but there were a number of challenges. I was the first child of both of my parents. They had me, they weren't married at the time. And in those days, to have a child out of wedlock was not a good thing. However, they were married when I was about 2 years old, and I had two brothers coming after that. My mother was in a relationship with my father, and it was quite abusive. I remembered seeing my father wrap a towel around his fist, and he would cuff her, he would beat her.
Oh my God.
So that it wouldn't leave marks on her skin.
So very clever on top of it.
Yes. At that time, I was probably about 2, as I remember. And I remember crying, and I couldn't understand why he was doing that. He was on top of her on the step outside, and he was really letting her have it. And that left an imprint on my mind, and it's still there. And, you know, throughout the years, I always said to myself, if or when I do enter into a relationship with a man, that will never happen to me. I remember them asking me when I was younger if I wanted to get married, and I said absolutely not, because that's what I thought marriage was.
Yes, of course.
Right? So I started primary school, when I was 4, and I was quite young. I think I was one of the youngest in the school. And in Trinidad and Tobago in the 1980s, 1979, 1980, schools were in a deplorable condition. There was no water and things like that. So I remember being left at school, not being prepared for it, not being told where I was going. They just drove up in a car, dropped me off in the
Dropped
yard,
you there.
and left me.
At 4,
And
yeah.
At 4. So I found my way. I was told that I was bright, meaning intelligent, so that they skipped me a few levels, so that I always ended up being the youngest in the class, until I wrote my common entrance exam at the age of 10, and it's actually an 11 plus exam, and I passed for my first choice, and it is still a very prestigious school in the island. It's a convent, and my teachers were happy. The school was happy. I was the only child to pass for that school. They gave me special prizes. And I remember being at the graduation function, not knowing what it was, because nobody ever explained anything to me. And sitting in the auditorium of the Lions Club with my mother, and I heard my name being called. So I turned to her and I asked, "Why are they calling me?" And she said, "I don't know. Go up there and see." And I'm like, "I'm not going to go up there." And she said, "Go, they're calling you." So they called my name a number of times. So I went up to the stage. Everybody's looking at me. And I received trophies and prizes. And I did not understand why. Only years later, I realized what it was. On hearing that I had passed for this school, my grandfather at the time, which is the grandfather on my mother's side, he was quite wealthy. And when he heard that I had passed for this school, he immediately sent a message to my mother telling her that he would pay for my education from that point onward.
That's good news.
Whatever I wanted to do, he was going to pay for it. Now, my mother was a bit shocked because she was estranged from her father for many years. So that she didn't believe at first. So when I got my book list, because in Trinidad and Tobago, you have to buy books for school. You don't get them at school, and they were very expensive. So when I took the first book list to him, and he took it and he bought my books and he dropped them off all brand new, straight from the store, that's when she believed what he said,
of course,
that he would do what he was going to do. So I spent 5 years at the convent studying a very wide curriculum, which at the time I didn't understand the value of. However, I understand it now because I am multi-talented, multi-skilled. You know, I mean, even the artwork you see behind me, I did all of that.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So thanks for my education. Thanks for my grandfather investing in me, because he could barely read and write. Right? So he could barely write his own name.
He was transferring his dream on you.
Yeah, but I did not know at the time. So I went through school. I performed well. I represented my school at various competitions and things like that. And when I finally got to my O-levels, GCE, which was just shifting across to the Caribbean exam, the CXA exam at the time, I managed to pass all of the subjects that I had written at that level, which qualified me to go on to the advanced level class, which is the 6th form or year 13, year 13, the equivalent in England. So at the time, which was in the early 90s, Once you got a full certificate at the O level, most girls went to work.
Mm-hmm.
And the only ones who went back to school were those who wanted to go on to university.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even though I wanted to be a lawyer, I really hadn't thought that far. And of course, there were a number of challenges that I did face at the school. Even though I had good times, there was a bit of discrimination
Mm-hmm.
based on race, based on color of skin. So that someone who looked like me, as dark as I am, I wasn't given the opportunities that
Others
I
were given.
believe that I should have got,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or was deserving of, that other girls got above me who were not as proficient
Mm-hmm.
at what they did. So after talking to other girls in school, I realized I wasn't the only one. And it wasn't just based on race, because the population in Trinidad and Tobago is mixed. I think we have approximately 36% of East Indian descent, about 27% of African descent, and then Syrian, Lebanese, and Caucasian.
That's a very, very, yeah.
Yes, mixed. So basically everybody is mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So that discrimination came solely based on the color of the skin, the features of the face, how straight the nose was, how long the hair was, how thick or thin the lips were. That's what it was based on. So every single thing they looked at. And in order for you to succeed, you had to be the best for them to even consider you in any way. So beside that, and those obstacles and those issues that I faced at school, I remember particularly one time receiving results for an end of term test, because we would normally have big exams at the end of each school term, 3 times per academic year. And the competition was always between myself and 2 other girls, one of Chinese descent and the other who was mixed Chinese and I believe African or East Indian, something like that. And we would always fight for the first, second, or third place. Mm-hmm. It would always be us 3. And I remembered, I said to myself, I set my goal. I said, this term, I am going to come first, because I've been trying my very best. And I haven't been able to cut that so far. So this term, I was going to try even harder. And I thought I had succeeded. And I remember one lunchtime after eating my meal, 2 girls came to class. And one said to me, Tricia, you came first. I said, what? Really? And she said, yes, but you're not going to get it. Mm-hmm. I said, what do you mean? She said, because the other girl said that black so-and-so can't beat me. So I'm going to go to my form teacher so that I can get an extra mark so that I should be first. And we were just separated by points, not even a full mark. Mm-hmm. So one got, let's say it was 90.5, one got 90.4, one got 90.3. That's how we were set. It was that close. So 1 mark was a lot. And she did go. And I didn't believe them at first, but when the results came out and I checked my book and I had a look at hers, I realized that
it had happened.
I thought that was unfair. But who could I actually go to for any type of support? Taking that information home, it was understood. I remember my mother saying, so what do you expect? You're black. What do you expect? Forget those people.
Yeah.
And just move on. And for me at that age, to just forget and move on, because I knew I got it.
Yeah, I understand.
I knew I got it.
So how did you move on? If we fast forward a little bit.
I continued.
Yeah, because you're obviously very determined.
if the teacher is going to support that type of thing, The only way I could beat them is at the national exam, the regional exam, which I did. I succeeded. I got distinctions in at least 3 subjects, and I passed all of the other subjects. And then I signed up to do A-levels. And then it continued. So that we ended up having to go into the Ministry of Education because I was one of the top performers at the exam. The ministry that was in charge of placing students on the list for advanced levels, I was on the list, I saw it. But when I went back to the school, they said my name was not there. And I did not qualify to enter the class.
Wow, what did you do?
So they only chose 20 girls out of 175, and I was one of them. So we made several trips back and forth to the ministry until finally one of the supervisors there realized what was going on, and he said, listen, I understand what's happening. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place your daughter in the equivalent co-educational school. Let her do her A-levels there. I was really angry about it because I thought that this person who had the power to make it right failed me again.
Yeah.
So for the first time in my life, I attended a co-ed secondary school, and it was culture shock, even though the schools were just a few hundred meters apart. And I excelled there. They really embraced me. It was an absolutely different culture altogether. And yes, there was racism, but, you know, I was able to make strides in that institution that I wasn't able to make where I was before. So they appointed me school prefect. I was head of the debate team and, you know, various things like that.
Yeah.
And it is at that same school that I ended up having my first teaching appointment. So when I was appointed to teach by the Ministry of Education, I went there. And I thought, you know, I've come home. However,
so you knew the teaching was for you.
Oh, yes. I was told that as a child, I always said I wanted to be a teacher. I remember drawing things on the wall with crayons and pretending to teach imaginary people.
That's funny. Child's imagination. Perfect.
Of course, I would get into trouble for drawing with crayons on the walls.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense.
But I knew that I wanted to write on a wall or a board or something like that and have other people listen to me. So when I got that appointment, I'm like, wow. But then I faced the racism from the staff.
Wow.
And that went on for 15 years.
Wow.
That I stayed there. For 15 years. Being told that I was not good enough. Being sidelined for promotion. Being attacked in a very vicious way in writing and orally as well. And, you know, through it all, because when I was supposed to have started university, my grandfather, who had paid for my education, he said, listen, I'm going to pay for it. You want to do law? You'll do law. I'll pay for it. So I was excited. I went to university, got my paper, brought it for him to sign as my sponsor. And that very night, before signing my form, he died of a heart attack.
Oh.
So I had to work.
So the dream was stopped.
Yeah, I had to stop school. And I had to go and work. I had no choice. At the same time, I was thrown out of my house by my mother.
Well,
because
why would you do that?
I was homeless. She felt that her father had given me too much that he never gave to her.
She was jealous, probably.
Yeah. And I eventually found out that her male friends were also looking at me when they came to the house. As a child, you don't understand these things.
No.
But later on,
yeah, you put
I put things together. Yeah. And so I was thrown out. I was 16. I went to family who kept me for a few days, but were afraid of her. And then after a few days, maybe a week, 8 days, they would say, well, you know, we don't really want your mother coming here and making a scene. You don't have anywhere else you could go? Now, finally, at one point, my great-grandmother, who was still alive at the time, she said, we need to get to the bottom of this. Why did your mother put you out of the house? We're going to get to the bottom. We're going to call her here. We want to hear what she has to say. We want you to say what you have to say. And if she's lying on you, we want you to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, but I've never answered my mother. That's considered very disrespectful for a child to answer their parent like that. So I said, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And I remember my aunt saying, so if she's lying on you, would you just sit there and not say anything? So I shrugged my shoulders. That's what she does. I've grown accustomed to it. So she said, well, listen to me. I wouldn't speak to you ever again if you let her lie on you and you sit and you say nothing. So I thought about it for a while. And then I wondered if I would have the courage to say something, to open my mouth and say something. Because as a child, I never spoke. I've only started speaking now as a teacher. I'm now motivational speaker. I never spoke as a child. I was very, very quiet. Always, if you would ask anybody, they would tell you, always very quiet. So she came. And they all sat in the room of the Shuttle House. It's a board house. And when she started telling her lies, and I said in a very small voice, that's not true. She grew even more upset to the point where she started stamping. So I remember she started stamping so hard that the house started to shake.
Gosh.
The wooden house started to shake. And I sat there, and my great-grandmother looked at her, my cousins looked at her, my aunts looked at her, and they said, why are you acting like that? Stop it. We don't want the neighbors to know. They don't need to know what we're discussing. And she was cussing and things like that. And then finally, when she realized that she wasn't having her way, that they were listening to me, she said, okay, everything that I've ever given to you, I want it back. I looked at her. I didn't understand what she meant. She said, everything I have given to you, I want it back. The clothes you're wearing now, I want it back. You were born naked, and I am leaving you naked.
Oh, that's terrible.
So she made me strip all of my clothes off. I was naked in the presence of my family. And she took all of my clothes, my underwear, everything, because she said she had bought it. She met me with nothing. She brought me into the world with nothing, and she would leave me with nothing. And she would make sure that she would close all of my doors. So my aunt was really upset, and she said, give her the clothes. She said, give her, because at first I didn't want to take it off. She said, give it to her. And they bought a t-shirt for me to wear. And I put that on, and she took the clothes and she left. And then she threw them at the side of the street. And at that point, I had nothing. Literally.
So 16, 17?
16 years.
16, God.
Yeah. At the time, I was supposed to have been graduating from school. I had no uniform. She had burnt it. No school uniform, no shoes, no books, nothing. So when I wrote my A-level exams, I had nothing. I had no books. I had nothing to revise from. I went to my grandfather and he gave me $100, which at the time was a lot of money.
So that's happened before then, because your grandfather had died, you
Yeah,
said.
this is before. This is just like days before he died.
Yeah.
Literally days. And he gave me this $100 and he said, go get some clothes. So I bought underwear. I bought a shoe to go to school because I had to write my exams. I was able to borrow a uniform from someone because I couldn't afford to buy the uniform again, and only just for a few days. And so I did that. And from there, I ended up staying with a friend from my school. And her mother kept me there because she was really upset about what was happening. She said,
Can imagine.
once you're writing exam, I want you to stay here. Don't think about anything. Don't lose focus. Focus on your exam. Write your exam. You went through 2 years of preparation for this. You can't not write it. So I said, okay. So her daughter, we all slept on the same bed. Because it was a 1-bedroom apartment. They weren't very wealthy. And I stayed there until I had finished writing my exams. And when I was finished, she took me back to my family. They, of course, didn't want me there because of all of the strife. And I ended up having to move to another house on the family land, but it wasn't really fit for habitation. So it was a wooden house, but it was falling down. There was no electricity, water. People who did drugs, they would come in at night. And it wasn't really secure. I mean, like, from the inside, you could just look through spaces in the boards in the wall and you could see who was outside. And vice versa, they could also see it. So I said, I need to get out. I need to get a job. But getting a job on a small island, you have to know somebody. I didn't know anyone. And I thought about it. How do I get around this problem? How do I overcome this challenge? Who do I know? And I started thinking who? And finally, one name came to me. This is a neighbor who had lived close to us for about 3 months. And he always had invited me to his house in San Fernando. And I never went. So I said, he's the only person that I know who could help. So I managed to contact him and he invited me over to his house. And I went there. And whilst there, I met a man that changed my life. And that person gave me a job. I had a job that day. He gave me money in my hand that day. I was able to buy clothing, buy food, because I had no food to eat. And he said, listen, I've been listening to what you've been saying, and I don't like the situation. I'm going to help you. And as naive as I was at the time, 17 years old, I thought he was really going to help me. And I think you know where this is going.
Yeah.
So that evening, he said, how are you getting back where you are living now? So I said, well, I have to take the public transport. He says, all right, I will drop you there. When he took me back to the house where I was living, that was falling down, and he saw it, he says, I'm not leaving you there. You should not be living there. I'm going to bring you to my house, and you're going to stay with me until I find you somewhere. So I went to his house. I met his wife and his children and his servants. He was quite wealthy. I did not know at the time that he was one of the richest men in the country. I did not know at the time he had his own company. So here I was looking for a job. And he could just give me all of these things just like that. I stayed with them. And I remember the first night that I slept there, they gave me my own room. His wife seemed quite nice, children lovely. And I remember laying on the bed and I felt in myself, yes, you did something right.
Yeah.
Soon, this whole nightmare would be over. Little did I know it was just starting.
It was just a start, yeah.
Yeah. So that night, I was laying on the bed. I didn't hear when he opened the door because I had locked it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know he had a key. And I only knew he was in the room when I felt a hand on my hip because I was laying my back was to the door. And I lay there so still, I was afraid to move because I had never been in a situation like that with a man.
Mm-hmm.
And the first question he asked me was, "Are you a virgin?" I said, "Yeah." And I don't know if it is the excitement that welled up in him. His hands started to shake as he touched me. I froze. I couldn't move.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I'm thinking, well, if I tell him stop, then I wouldn't have anywhere to live. What to do?
Mm-hmm.
But his wife was there. So did she know what was going on?
Mm-hmm.
Who could I call? And I lay there. I didn't move. And just praying, God, just stop this. And I heard his wife. And she said, "Is this what you're doing to me?" And then she said to me, "I thought you were my friend. Why are you doing this to me?" And she really became irate. And he told her, he said, "Be quiet. Go to your room. I will be with there shortly. Do not speak to her like that. Don't ever speak to her like that." This is what he told her about. And she just obeyed. And she left me there with him. I stayed with that family for about a month. And I started working in his company. He made me swear not to tell anyone on the job.
Of course.
That I was actually living at his house, or that it was because of him I had the job. And I've always been a very silent person, so that wasn't hard for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked there. And, months passed. They got me an apartment. I think the wife was really relieved about it, that I was out of the house.
Can imagine.
But then he had free reign to visit me whenever he liked, because the lease for the place was in his name. His name. He put the friend that I knew as a roommate. And of course, at the time, I didn't realize it was just somebody to keep an eye on me, to make sure that I had no boyfriend or anything at the time. Finally, I did meet someone that I thought could get me out of it. You see? So it's like jumping from the frying pan into the fire again. And I met a guy. He was really nice. He would stay over a couple times. I told my boss, I said, "I have somebody, I don't want to continue with you anymore." And he didn't like it. The guy in question, who was my boyfriend, he had asked me to marry him. And I said, "Wow, this only happens in books."
In dreams.
In dreams.
Fairy tales, yeah.
Wow. So I said yes. So we went and we put up banns in the office, the warden's office, to get married. And they put the notice in the paper. And a couple of weeks after, I started getting calls. and found out that this man was already married.
My God, you move from one story into the other.
Yes. It's one after the next, after the next. And, you know, I found out I was already pregnant. I decided I was not going to abort my child. Didn't matter what. And when he realized I was pregnant, I started seeing him less and less. When my boss found out I was pregnant, I ended up without a job.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Now, even though the laws stipulate that you have to have good grounds to terminate the employment of a pregnant woman, laws aren't enforced. So I ended up sick, in hospital, no job, no money, can't pay rent, homeless, without food.
Again. How old were you then?
At that time, I was 19.
Yeah.
And
Tricia, we have to accelerate a little bit. Normally it's 30 minutes. It will be longer because I find your story incredible and I'm speechless. I don't even speak. But yeah, we need to make it a little shorter. But please continue. So just jump a little.
Skip it. All right. So I ended up without food for 40 days. It's hard for a person to not eat for a day, 2 days, but imagine being pregnant.
Yeah.
Moving in your belly and no food. I remember hearing that child in my belly sucking on his fingers because I was hungry. He's 20 years old and he still sucks his fingers.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. You know, but I managed after much effort because I said, you know, after this, I don't ever want to end up in a situation like this again. I don't ever want to be in another relationship with any man. I don't want to see them anytime soon. So I stayed by myself for about 3 years and I started taking care of myself, looking for other jobs. And finally, I got a job as a teacher. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make sure that no young person has to go through this. And if I do encounter
that explains your focus on that. Yeah.
Yes. I said, if I find anyone going through this, I'm going to do as much as I can
to save
to
them
help.
from that. Yeah.
Because nobody ever helped me. I went to all types of people, organizations. Nobody helped. Because there's this silence when it comes to women and abuse. There's a silence.
Definitely.
And that silence kills.
Heard so many stories about that.
Yeah. So, you know, I went through that, started working. I said, okay, this is great, wonderful, making my own money, never hungry again, budgeting, learning to make do with what I had. And then I decided I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to go back to school. I wanted to do law. I said, but I'm teaching now. Maybe let me do something in line with that. So I signed up. I didn't think the university would accept me because after all of these years of having my esteem really trampled on,
I can imagine also.
Like they would accept me. When I got that letter that they did, I'm like, what is this? Are these people serious? So I started going to school part-time, working full-time, raising this child. And then traveling there, all of the challenges, rapists on the taxi stands, being afraid to travel to go to classes, coming back from classes, no transportation. And it took me 10 years to get my first degree. 10 long, hard years.
Your determination is just incredible. And despite whatever adversity, you have that focus, that vision. You want to go there, and
I know what I want.
Yeah,
I know what I want.
No, very clearly. Yeah,
I know what I want, and when I speak to God about what I want, He listens, and I have to show Him that I am determined.
Yeah,
to go through to get to the end. I have to make it to the end. And after 10 years of colleagues laughing at me, how long is she going to go to university? Is she still doing that one degree? Like, and they would laugh. They would laugh.
But you did it.
But I did it. And I graduated. And then a friend of mine said to me, she said, Tricia, let's go sign up to do our master's. I'm like, what?
Get the chills.
I said, I just finished 10 years. I haven't got over that yet. I need a break. And besides, I don't think they will accept me.
But they did.
And they did. So when I got the letter and I showed her, she also got accepted. So we decided we were going to start together. We're going to go through this thing together. We were going to do this after we were finished. Start a little business, you know, combine forces, woman power. And she just got a divorce after an abusive relationship with her husband. I was so excited for her. She was so happy. I was excited for myself. And we left work one Friday. And she stopped in the middle of the street so I could cross. She said, bye, Tricia. I said, bye, Rena. See you on Monday. She said, okay. And that was the last time I saw her.
Oh.
Because the next day, her husband, her ex-husband, entered her house and stabbed her to death.
Oh, my God.
Where I come from, violence against women is very common. And not only adult women, but baby girls all the way up. From the time you are born, you are taken advantage of as a woman where I come from. And that really threw me off.
Okay.
It threw me off. And I said, you know what? I am going to start a movement in my country to do something about this. So I started writing. I said, I'm going to tell the world my story. And it started off as a 1,500-word essay that my lecturer had given to me as an exercise. And when I got to 1,500 words, I couldn't stop. And I said to her, I said, Doctor, I started writing and I can't stop. And she said, keep writing. And I kept writing. And in 8 days, I wrote the book. In 8 days, coming home after work, writing exam at the university, getting home at 8 p.m. in the night. In 8 days, I wrote the book.
It had to get out.
It had to get out. And I started promoting it, and people started saying, yes, this happened to me and that happened to me. Our stories are so similar. I am so happy that you're really brave to come out and tell people. I went on the radio, I went on the television to get support.
No, of course.
None. One company I wrote to never even bothered to read the letter. They sent me a response stating that they had no vacancies because they thought I had written to them for employment. It was that bad. And I did a radio interview, and one of the hosts, he asked me, so if you're not successful at this in Trinidad, what will you do? I said, well, if they don't help me, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go outside. And here I am in London.
Good for you. Good for you. No, you definitely.
Here I am in London. So I started my master's degree. And in 2012, I ended up in hospital thinking I had the flu, only to realize I was urinating blood and they found a tumor in my kidney. Sick.
Never stops.
Never stop. Never stop. And in the meanwhile, marriage issues, children to see about, going to school, going to work, people laughing at me on the job, being ostracized, discriminated against, and I'm still going. Because
you're so impressive. You have a mission. No.
I have a mission, and I will accomplish it. And I remember laying in that hospital bed in San Fernando General Hospital in pain. I couldn't turn, I couldn't lay on my back, I couldn't lay on my side. So much pain. I was peeing my blood. The doctors said to me, no, it's not urine. It's not urine. It's maybe your menses, you know. And I said, no, I know where pee comes from. Yeah. And 8 of them stood up and made me sit on a bedpan and pee. And when they saw it fill up with blood, I saw the head doctor, his jaw dropped.
Yeah.
I lost 60 pounds in 2 weeks. My hair fell out. I looked like a corpse. My complexion became dull and black like my hair. They couldn't find veins to put needles in my skin. All my veins disappeared. They had to put needles in my feet. And on that deathbed, when they ran out of drugs and they couldn't treat me anymore because I had to wait for a date so the surgeon could do the surgery on me. They sent me home with a prescription.
That's crazy.
With a prescription at $1,000 per week supply that I couldn't afford. And I remember laying down in my bed and I said to God, I said, Lord, you did not bring me this far to leave me. Fix it. Fix it. Because you see, when you want something, you see, we have not because we ask not.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
And I asked, and he said to me, Tricia, is there anything in your body that I can't fix? He is my doctor in the sick room. And I will tell you something. I went to my church. I spoke to my pastor. They prayed and they laid hands, and I came back home. And I had the most excruciating pain. I thought I was in labor, and that pain knocked me out from 6 p.m. that evening. When I woke up, it was 6:15, but I felt rested. And I said, I only slept for 15 minutes, but I feel so rested, not realizing it was 6:15 of the next day. When I went to the washroom, I was afraid because I would only see blood. And when I looked back, I didn't see anything.
Wow.
All the bleeding had stopped. The pain had stopped. The swelling in my side had stopped. All the morphine they were giving me, I didn't need it anymore.
That's incredible.
And when I went back to the hospital, they did the tests. Now, I had all of these MRIs, CAT scans, ultrasound showing this mass, this tumor in my kidney. And when I went back, I told them, and they did the tests. They found nothing.
This is a miracle.
Yes, they got confused. The doctor said, hold a minute, I have a problem. I said, what is the problem? She said, just let me get my boss. And the senior radiologist came in. She said, hi, are you Tricia? I said, yes. She looked at the file. It was about 1 inch thick with all of the test results, my hospital file. And she said, are you Tricia Trotman-Maraj? I said, yes. She said, are you the patient who was on the ward, the cardiac ward? I said, yes. Are you sure you are Tricia Trotman-Maraj? I said, yeah. She flipped through the file. I said, why do you ask? She said, ma'am, you do not look like what I am seeing in front of me. I said, how am I supposed to look? She said, you look so alive. What I'm looking at in this file
is a dead person.
She said, where was the pain? Which side was affected? So I showed her. I said, it's my left side. And she said, okay, maybe we got the side wrong.
Sorry for that. Oh,
it's okay.
Now it's ringing on my computer.
She said, maybe we got the side wrong. So they checked the right side.
Oh, yeah, of course.
She said she looked confused. She called 2 other doctors. They said, okay, ma'am, take down your underwear. Let's check your entire urinary system. She said, that's strange. I said, what is strange? She said, well, I'm looking at your entire urinary system and it looks brand new. There's no scarring. There's no dilation. There is nothing here that says that you are the person that we see in this file.
Yeah.
What did you do? And I said, prayer. So you think you got a miracle? I said, I don't think I got a miracle. I know I got a miracle. You can see.
Well,
I got a miracle.
it must be.
They stood for half an hour arguing, and I was just sitting on the bed looking at them. And they said, all right. Okay, miracle lady. We want to review you in 6 weeks, just in case it comes back.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not going to come back. And they did the review. There was absolutely nothing. I got pregnant after that. I had my daughter. Still nothing. There will never be anything because it's gone for good.
Mm-hmm. God had your back.
All the time. So you see, determination, once you set your goals,
yeah,
once you know what you want, and you are fully grounded, there is nothing
that can stop you.
Absolutely nothing that can stop you. You see, if I was listening to people who were laughing at me when I was doing my first degree, I would have quit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I was listening to them, she's an author. When I see that, I'll believe that. I would never have published this book. If I had listened to them when they said that I will never get anywhere and I didn't deserve anything better, including my husband, because they thought he was too good for me,
mm-hmm.
I would not be here. I re-strategize, reorganize my entire life. And I said, you know what? Something has to give. And if it's not happening at this location, it's going to happen somewhere else. I'm moving. So after much planning, of course, I went through a divorce. I can't go through all of that. But that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm remarried now. And when I decided to resign my job and leave, I didn't know how, where, who. I didn't know how I was going to make it, but I trusted in my God. And everything, if you ask my husband, he'll tell you, he is amazed. Every single thing fell into place as it should have to facilitate that move, that successful move. And here I am in London, meeting people like you, your viewers.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Doing my business.
Yeah.
Happy, enjoying life.
Love it.
And seeing that I could achieve my goal, my mission in life.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful story. I really love it. And yes, you're right. I mean, although the story before, of course, is completely different. But the moment I decided that I wanted to move to London, everything started falling into place. And I had that faith also. I knew it would work. And I just went for it. And people around me were extremely scared of what I was undertaking, but it worked. Absolutely, it worked. Tricia, I have to shorten the conversation. This is a much longer interview than normally, but I've really enjoyed doing it. Do you want to tell us where people can find you? You want to be a speaker, so I suppose you want opportunities. You would definitely be a good motivational speaker. You have a story to tell. Where can people find you?
Oh, well, you can find me on all of the social network sites. Just Google my name, Tricia Trotman-Maraj. I do daily video posts on YouTube, Google+, Twitter, Facebook. I have a Facebook page there. So just do a search on my name, Tricia Trotman-Maraj, and you will find me. You can message me. If you want me to come and speak, message me anywhere. YouTube, Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, anywhere. I am available. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Super. Tricia, thank you so much. So for our listeners and viewers, if you too want to step into the driver's seat of your life, like Tricia did, like I did, and want to make things happen, you can contact me on my website for a complimentary consultation and find out how I can help you do so. So my website is agnesvanrijn.com. So of course the usual www. Agnes, ANYESVANRHIJN.com. Tricia, thank you again so much for sharing your story.
You're most welcome.
Amazing journey. And I have absolutely no doubt that you will succeed. And I hope to see you soon.
It was my pleasure, as long as I could help somebody along the way, motivate that person to keep striving for the best. That's the satisfaction that I need.
Super. Thank you so much.
So thanks so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.